for availing yourselves this morning. Thank you, Shanaz, for the apologies. Today we'll be receiving a briefing by the Department of Science and Innovation, as well as the South African Agency for Science and Technology Advancement, SAASTA, on their program of support to the Department of Basic Education. I believe we'll be joined by DDG Imran Patel, Mr. Manzini, or Dr. Manzini, as well as Mr. Ramova. I would like to then hand over to DDG Patel to take us through the presentation.
Good morning, Chair.
I see the DMs on the platform, DDG. Apologies for that.
No, that's what I was
sorry,
going to comment on.
Okay, sorry, I hadn't opened my participants column. DM, good morning. Apologies for that. Any remarks from your side before we hand over to DDG Patel?
Good morning, Chairperson, and thank you for this opportunity to basically give you a briefing on the support that we give as the Department of Science and Innovation to basic education. And I thought that's probably for some few minutes just to say that, you know, last I think a week before last, I had an opportunity to go to the South African National Space Agency, where I
recording in progress
hosted as part of the National Space Day learners from Zwelihle Primary School. There was about 35 learners that we hosted there. And we got to expose the learners to, you know, to the center itself and the kind of opportunities that exist in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, but also to expose them into practical, you know, activities that are aligned towards science, technology. I mean, they had to, I joined them in satellites, in also building and launching a rocket. Of course, the rocket that our group of the 6 or 7 groups, the records that our group, the group that I belong to, couldn't fly that high. You know, and I think this illustrates in a practical sense the kind of support that you know, so
recording
it's not
stopped.
necessarily only
Recording
support,
in progress.
It's it's a beneficial relationship, because if we get to expose you know, the kids, as you will see in the many programs that we you know, have, be it the Maths Olympiad, which we are trying to revive, which had been impacted by COVID-19, or any of the programs, you know, it's beneficial, you know, for both basic education, science and innovation, but also for country, because it means that we get to, you know, plant a seed amongst these, among the kids at primary and at high school level, you know, to take interest in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So basically, that's the intention, and I think you know, this feeds obviously into our national system of innovation. It also feeds into you know, the agent tasks of us, you know, contributing towards the 4th industrial revolution. So I think the presentation, as you indicated, would be led, Chairperson, by Mr. Imran Patel, together with Dr. Manzini, and also Mr. Isaac Ramova. I'll be listening in, Chairperson, because I believe our team is more than capable of also responding to some of the questions that the committee has. So thank you very much, Chairperson, for this opportunity. I would like to hand over to Imran. Imran?
Thanks, TM, and good morning to you and to the chair and the rest of the committee. In addition to Dr. Manzini, who will be doing the presentation, and who's the Chief Director, responsible for human capital and science promotion, and he'll be assisted by Isaac Ramova, who's the Director for Science Promotion. We also have the colleagues from SAASTA, particularly Dr. Mosia, who's now the new head for SAASTA, but the presentation will be done by the DSI colleagues because it's broad-based coverage of what we do, and then during question and answer time, if there are issues that require the attention of the SAASTA colleagues, then they will provide that. I'll just check with, because I don't know the full SAASTA team, before we start, Dr. Manzini, to check whether there's anyone else besides Dr. Mosia on the call. And then you can go ahead and do the presentation.
Thank you, DDG. I'm the only one who's present. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Mosia. Okay, so Dr. Manzini, do you want to start and go through the presentation? I can see your presentation on background.
Thank you very much, DDG, and good morning to the Honorable Chairperson and members, and thank you very much for the opportunity. And I thank the Deputy Minister for those remarks. I think they set the tone for this presentation. I hope you can all hear me well and also see the presentation.
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The Department of Science and Innovation has a long-standing commitment to support for basic education. In fact, it goes back to when the department was created. In 2014, we adopted a framework of activities to support basic education. And there are three principles that I wish to share with honorable members that underpin our engagement with basic education. Firstly, we recognize that basic education is the responsibility of the Department of Basic Education and the provincial departments. They play the leadership role and the resourcing role in terms of the Constitution. The DSI support for basic education is only an add-on to what DBE and provincial departments are providing. Mainly, our initiatives are extracurricular in nature, as you will see. The DSI support for basic education is derived from our mandate and policies and the body of work that we do. Wherever we see possibilities for application to basic education, we take advantage of those and we extend those opportunities to add value to basic education. In terms of institutional arrangements, we have signed formal collaboration agreements with the National Department of Education in 2004. We've also signed collaboration agreements with the provincial departments, except I think for two, which we are still finalizing, that is the Eastern Cape and the Northwest. However, this hasn't stopped us from collaborating with all the provincial departments of education and of course the national sister department. Now, collaboration agreements state engagement protocols as well as roles and responsibilities. And whenever we engage at school level, we observe these protocols. We are very sensitive to making sure that everything is done orderly without disrupting basic education. How do we dispense our support? In each case, in each of these provinces, the provinces identify no less than 100 schools, usually with a focus in mathematics and science, to be the key focus for our support. Funding and in-kind support is provided through several stakeholders and role players. I'm just mentioning three here. We are supporting directly at least 30 science centers that are spread across the country, which help us to implement a whole range of activities. Through our science councils, we also use them. They have a nice footprint in their programs to reach out to learners across the country, and the 6 councils, of course, include the National Research Foundation, the NRF. We've got a whole host of organizers of science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and innovation activities, things like Olympiads and fairs and so on. In the private sector, some of them are NGOs. We work through them to implement our programs. In terms of coordination, the South African Agency for Science, Technology and Advancement, SAASTA, of the NRF performs that role. Now, moving into the initiatives themselves. Now, we need to develop skills for the future of work, which is fast changing. Those skills involve things like problem solving, creativity, cognitive flexibility, an innovative mindset, digital literacy, computational skills, and so on. Now, through the science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and innovation Olympiads and expos and similar activities, we aim to cultivate these skills that I've mentioned by enabling learners across the country to take part. Participation in these activities have reached a level of about 400,000 learners countrywide. This is a big increase compared to the time I was attending school, when those opportunities were open to only a select few of learners. But we'd like to expand the participation even further than this. The point of these Olympiads and expos is not necessarily to win, but through taking part, learners are able to acquire the skills that I've mentioned above: problem solving, creativity, innovation, and so on. So it doesn't have to be limited to certain high-performing individuals. The opportunities can still benefit a large number of learners, and we are working to achieve that. Learners, especially when we talk about high school learners and teenagers, it is important to inculcate a sense of purpose in them so that they can see where they are going in terms of their studies. Now, we integrate relevant career awareness in this respect. In particular, every year we publish and distribute hard and electronic copies of our tried and tested science, engineering, and technology careers publication. It's updated every 3 years, and it goes out to learners. And it's not just a careers publication. It also includes tools, such as tools that learners can use to determine their aptitudes and their interests. And through SAASTA, we deploy science and engineering professionals to school functions and extracurricular events as part of a role modeling campaign. The National Science Week, which we've been implementing for a number of years now, it's a very successful event, including all kinds of activities and festivals. Learners here take the opportunity to interact with scientists, as well as through exhibits from many partners across the country. And this is one of our flagship programs when it comes to basic education support. Now, looking at the work as far as the curriculum, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics school curriculum is concerned, we provide learners and educators access to science laboratories through our science centers, where those centers have got those facilities. We know the problem of facilities and equipment and apparatus in our schools. It's a big challenge. So those centers, which are spread right across the country, provide opportunities for that, or otherwise they are able to reach out to schools using things like science kits and so on, thereby helping those learners and educators. We use scientists and at universities and science councils to develop complementary learning and teaching support materials. These are based on the key priority areas of the department as a way of providing real-life examples and the application of concepts that they learn in the classrooms. Through the National Youth Service Program, we have been deploying science and engineering graduates to schools where they serve as teacher assistants. I mean, currently we've just been supporting at least 160 graduates who are helping out in the schools across the country. Then in terms of life skills, we work with teachers through our National Intellectual Property Management Office, training educators on intellectual property management so that they can be able to manage strategically intellectual property that arise from their work and also from the work of some of the learners. In terms of research support, through our SAASTA initiative, this is the South African Research Chairs Initiative, which is managed by the NRF, we support research work that has a direct bearing on curriculum development as well as classroom practice. And specifically in educational management and leadership, we have a chair at the University of Free State, in teaching and education practice at CPUT, education and care in childhood at UJ. And as far as mathematics education is concerned, we support no less than 3 chairs at Wits, Rhodes, and Nelson Mandela. These chairs indicate a commitment which can last up to 15 years of sustained support at high levels of funding, so that our researchers can really apply themselves, apply their minds to come up with the best solutions that will inform future curriculum development and educational practice. Now, Chairperson, Honorable Chairperson, as you know, the world is changing very fast. We are talking about the onset of the 4th Industrial Revolution, and we have to be prepared for this. Certain technological skills are critical. Here we are focusing on coding and robotics. Through the Center for High Performance Computing at the CSR, we've established a 3-year Train the Trainer initiative, targeting selected officials of the provincial departments of education. And here in our selection, we target those officials that have the capacity and an interest in training others. And right from the outset, they know that this is not just for them, but they go into this training with the purpose of training other people. So last year we began with the first cohort of 85 officials from 74 schools across the 9 provinces. They went into this training program. Now, the reach of this program will expand as the new trainers who have completed the program go back to their districts and they train more officials, they train more teachers who will in turn train others and thereby spread out competencies in these critical areas. Now, in this in the decadal plan, which was approved by Cabinet at the end of last year, it identifies a grand challenge that has a focus on the big changes that we see in society, in education, and the future of work. This is an area of research and scholarship and practice that we are beginning to get involved in. There is discontinuous change that is taking place in society. Our children and grandchildren will be living and working and studying in ways that are very different to the ones that we can imagine at the moment. Now, there's a growing body of scholarship that is emerging around this work, this area. And what we are doing is to begin to establish the level of thought leadership where there is research capacity across the country. We are mobilizing societal stakeholders so that we can begin to facilitate code design and interventions in this regard. And we hope that by the end of this year, we'll have at least an outline of the kinds of focus areas that we will use to channel our programs and support in the next 10 years. Now, the Department of Basic Education is a critical role player in this regard, as a lot of this work speaks directly to how we can prepare learners for the future. Now, as far as the science centers, I spoke a bit about science centers. We have at least 50 across the country. We are supporting directly 30. They have a nice footprint, as you can see, in all the provinces, and they are very vital as conduits of our support. Learners and educators, they come in and go and derive a lot of benefit from these centers. And we are working to create even more as we move forward. In terms of tracking the success of our programs, in 2019, we developed a science engagement monitoring and evaluation framework. This framework identifies the types of evaluations that we need to conduct, the intervals, the metrics, the data sets that should be collected on an ongoing basis to gauge the level of success and impact of our programs. The evaluations are scheduled for implementation at 6-year intervals. They are benchmarked, with the best in the world, and seeking to establish the impact of our science engagement program. And we are looking to have the first comprehensive report in the next couple of years. As I approach the end, Honorable Chairperson, let me just share some thoughts and observations in relation to the levels and trends of participation in our science fairs, expos, and Olympiads. COVID-19 restricted badly, these events, and some of them had to be cancelled completely. Last year, as the world opens up, we put a great effort into restarting these events, including promoting the participation of schools in the disadvantaged communities. What we have noticed, however, is that some of the pre-COVID gains have been reversed, unfortunately. For an example, as far as the science fairs are concerned, the participation of the no-fee paying schools, which we are trying to really promote, went down from about 64% to 42% between 2020 and 2022. In the Maths Olympiad, the no-fee paying schools dropped from about 56 to 38% between 2019 and 2021. So the above trends suggest that the disadvantaged communities may have been affected disproportionately by the restrictions. We are working hard to, firstly, to achieve the levels that we had before COVID, and further on to improve on them with a focus on the disadvantaged communities. Perhaps on a more positive note, throughout this period and across all the these big events that we implement, the girls continue to outnumber boys in all the supported areas, and we're quite pleased with that. Honorable Chairperson, I think this gives you a sense of the work that we do as the Department of Science and Innovation to support basic education. It is by no means a comprehensive list of the work that we do. The Deputy Minister in his remarks, for instance, spoke about the work that we're doing in the sites of the square kilometer array, and there's a good amount of work that is being done with the schools there and the learners. In fact, it's going to change the futures of those communities because of that work. There's other examples of pieces of work that we do, for instance, with the National Science and Technology Forum, supporting bursaries, bringing together learners and scientists across the country. But let me end here, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Manzini. Chair, that's the presentation, Honorable Chair, and we're ready to take questions.
Thank you very much, colleagues. It was really exciting to see the Deputy Minister interacting with the children in Hermanus, or I think it's the area of Hermanus, with SAASTA. I think it was last week or the week before that. It was last week. It was really exciting to see him interacting with the children there, and also exciting to see for me, because I mean, this type of work is not necessarily directly within the scope of the department, and I think when we went to Northern Cape, we raised our concerns to say, well, while we appreciate and understand our responsibility as a department to ensure that there is science engagement, to ensure that we increase the number of young people who are participating in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and by contributing to the succession plan. I want to call it a succession plan, or an ecosystem that will feed into the greater mandate of our national system of innovation. We also want basic education and its provincial departments to take responsibility. So if we invest, like we did in the Northern Cape, in some of the schools in Sutherland, I think the bare minimum that we expect is maintenance of whatever investment, or maintenance and the sustainability of whatever investment we would have made. So I think that's also a conversation we need to have very strongly, to say, when contributions have been made, not only by DSI, but by various, government entities and departments, we need to ensure, and even by DBE itself, we need to ensure that those capital injections, those investments are maintained so that we're not pouring water into a leaking bucket. But thank you, colleagues, for those inputs. I would like to, at this point, note if there are members who have any questions to ask. I think on my side, there's always a concern of the impact, right? So I don't know what measuring tools we're using to say, the work that we are doing in the broader scheme of things, how great an impact does it have? I hope, let me see, sorry, I'm using my phone, so it's a bit hard to, okay, I see Honorable Mananiso and Honorable Makesi, but yes, so the impact of the work that we're doing, the work we're doing vis-a-vis the demand, and I know that colleagues said, what they've presented today is just but a bit of the work that we're doing, but there needs to be ways in which we can measure the work we're doing and the impact that it has and the demand that the sector has. So for example, we know that I keep on getting the name wrong, and Honorable Mananiso is the one who always corrects me, but the initiative at University of KwaZulu-Natal that was dealing with rocketry. And we know from our oversight visit there that there is a demand for young women to find themselves in such an initiative. And we know that therefore that speaks to the need for more young women taking upon mechanical engineering. And so the feeder into that, are we having sufficient young women enrolling for those particular disciplines? And then so the base of it, so when it starts from basic education, are we doing enough to make sure that we have a great enough feed into the rest of the ecosystem, right? So those are the work that if those numbers are able to increase, we will have a better measure, or we will be able to see the results of the work that we are doing through such programs that you have presented to us today. I will go into other questions at a later stage. I think let me just take questions from members. Honorable Mananiso, Honorable Makesi, and Honorable Mukhale. Honorable Mananiso.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson. Let me start by welcoming all the presentations. And I must say, Chairperson, as I always say, that when we lecture in terms of what is happening in our space and what is good for our learners and students. Chairperson, one would want to appreciate the fact that the presentation that we got, it actually covers the 4 W's and age. And I just want to emphasize there and there on issues that one needs clarity on. As we checked the presentation, we had an indication that the department has signed agreement with only 7 provinces. So I just want to check with them, what are the challenges with the other 2, and can they give us a specific time frame in terms of when are they anticipating to actually sign off agreements with those 2 provinces? The other question is with regards to what criteria are used by the provincial departments of education to select schools that will participate in the department's program of support. And the other one is with regards to the relation to schools that are participating. What proportion do the present in relation to all schools? And as well, furthermore, are there marked differences between girls and boys, rural urban schools, and state-funded and private schools participations? how are these schools supported by the Provincial Department of Education participate in these particular programs? And Chair, one of the things that I think why I'm all over is the fact that the presentation is not being marked in terms of the slides. And you know, when we do this particular oversight, we like referring to slides. So I'm just gonna go there and there in terms of my questions. And I want to check, noting that the DSI and basic education have been in process and working together to ensure that STEM becomes reality in all these schools. What were the actual challenges that the department could have faced that now at least we're getting there into the right direction after so many years that they've been deliberating on these particular issues? And Chairperson, the other one is with regards to how DSI dispenses its support. Again, on the presentations, there are no specifics in terms of the locations of those particular centers. Can they just give us this in writing in terms of those specifics, centers as well, organizations, in terms of where are they located? Because, you know, as the portfolio committee, we like just doing, you know, random individual oversight. So this can actually help us when we are just out and about in specific locations. And Chair, I think on this one of the National Youth Service Program, we need to applaud them in terms of ensuring that there's a mainstreaming of this particular program. My question there becomes, did they use actually the NYS program for recruitment, or they just used it as tailor-mating to the youth accord, or they used actually the portal of recruitment by the NYS? I just want clarity with regards to that. The other issue, Chairperson, in terms of what one have noted with the whole presentation, is the fact that the department doesn't indicate what are the partners on board. For example, early last year, I attended a program just near by my place. There's a school called Palmer Secondary School that have benefited from basic education and MTN program with regards to robotics. So I want to check, if possible, they can write to us who are their partners, more especially private partners in terms of this particular program. And Chair, lastly, I just want to check as well with them that can they give us a presentation that actually outlines their programs per age cohort or grades in terms of this particular STEM program? And Chair, as we normally do in this particular portfolio committee, it is important that the department doesn't lose touch on the fact that when they give us presentations, they need to break down the demographics, so that we are able to check if really there's still that inequality, or people that doesn't have interest in terms of math and science as one of the measuring subject. That's it from me. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Mananiso. Honorable Machesi.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to everyone. First of all, I would like to appreciate the presentation, and I think it goes back to what I raised during our oversight, if you recall, Chair, that we do need to have fairs for learners who would like to get into the science field, and also, you know, to motivate those who are kind of like, you know, shy and don't want to participate into that. And I think that came strongly when we went to UKZN, where we saw the aerospace and the rocket there. So what ASREC is doing there was quite exciting to see. And also, I think, you know, it's exciting also to know that, you know, our learners are exposed to this kind of technology and they know what is out there. But having said that, also, you know, I'm a little bit concerned of the fact that, you know, I think it's always been my concern that despite all these efforts, we are not seeing the results. We're not seeing the number of students that are getting into tertiary universities, which is universities and TVET colleges, pursuing science degrees or engineering or even, you know, to say that, you know, they get into technologies, degrees and so forth. And so and that is primarily because they're not taking the subjects that they need to take, which is the maths and science. So there's kind of a reluctance. I'll make an example. I went also to the University of Free State a couple of days ago, and I spoke to about 27 students. Amongst the 27 students, I sort of randomly asked them, you know, what degrees they're doing. Most of them, they were doing, they decided to do teaching, majority of them, and they're teaching maths and science, the degrees that they are pursuing, and the other ones were like theology, and only one student said to me they are pursuing, I think it was BSc in computer science and mathematics. So that is, for me, that was just an indication that, you know, we're a little bit far away from achieving the goal of ensuring that we have, actually, I don't even know what is the goal of the country in terms of maths and science students. So I don't know their target. I don't know basic education's target. So going to my questions, just comments that I wanted to make. Going to my question, I just want to find out, why is the collaboration agreement taking long with the Eastern Cape and the Northwest? If you started with this program in 2004, now it's 9 years later, and there's no agreement. I just want to find out why and what's the reason for that. And also, my second question is, the participants are between 300,000 and 400,000 per annum. I want to find out, like, what is the target? Because you're saying that, you know, obviously you are far from the number that you'd like to achieve, because in any given time, the learners that come into basic education is, I think it's about 12 million in total, more or less. So I just want to find out, like, I know the ones that are coming in from grade R is about 1 million. So, but in any given time in a year of basic education, they will have approximately 12 million students, learners within their system. And yet this program is looking at 300 to 400,000. But also I can understand that maybe you're introducing this mass with students that are from grade 10, 11, and 12. So that could be the reason why you have such a low number. But I just want to find out, what is your target, and when will you think that you'll be able to achieve that, whatever that you set target. And also I just want to say, you know, one of the reasons that you know, not many learners take maths and science is because the foundation phase is usually very weak, and that's the reason why there isn't much participation from learners, especially if we are to consider that you know, the learners, they start to choose their subjects at grade 10. So they will naturally, like, I think that's when we have our highest dropout. And also that's when you see that the reluctance of learners choosing maths and science. That's when it starts to dwindle. So I just want to find out, in this program, is there a way that you can actually be able to extend it in terms of your maths and science participation? How can you be able to assist from early in terms of foundation phase? How are you able to do that? Have you actually thought of how to assist schools to improve their outputs in terms of maths and science learners? I know that you're saying that during COVID, the numbers of those who participate in maths also dropped, and science, the programs sort of dropped. But the COVID, the good thing about COVID was that it gave us an opportunity to be able to have virtual meetings. So it has exposed that avenue. How are you utilizing that avenue to ensure that you expand even further in terms of the number of learners who participate? Also, we talk about Olympiads, calling them Olympiads, and here to say that you don't participate, you don't compete. So these basically are just fairs. But it's always nice. I mean, it's a natural thing for every human being to compete and to showcase their ability. I think it would be good at some stage to sort of expose the learners to kind of compete and participate in Olympiads, and especially with other international schools. I think maybe that's something that maybe we can at some stage look into it. The resources of schools in terms of, especially in the disadvantaged schools, they don't have laboratories. So you might actually say, okay, fine, you're having a fair, this is what you want to expose the learners to, and this is what is out there. Yet, when you look at their schools where they are supposed to be, learning about science, in their laboratories, they actually don't have laboratories. And even if they do have laboratories, they might not have a teacher that can teach them. I think that's what we saw in Northern Cape, whereby I think there was a donation of chemicals and all the equipment, but because there was no teacher and there was no interest in the school, the learners were not really exposed to science. So it's not only the issue of resources. Disadvantaged schools will have the problems of resources, not adequate resources. Sometimes they don't have teachers. So I don't know how you can be able to. I know I'm kind of stretching you. I know that this basically is out of your ambit. But is there a way that we can, especially with Zoom, that we can be able to not only have these fairs where we show them, but how can we actually assist and participate? Because you also have the trainer program that you have. So how do you bring in the teachers that at different schools to also not only come and watch the fairs, but how can they also learn and capacitate them to be able to assist, to be able to improve their teaching skills when they are, when they have to give the subjects of these maths and science subjects. I'm glad that you say that the number of girls continue to outnumber boys, but I think I would like to see that at university level, because I think that's what the chair was saying, that when we went to UKZN at the aerospace, they were saying they don't have enough female students that are coming in, and especially in engineering faculties like mechanical engineering, they are not seeing as many female students that are coming in. So I think this is still a work in progress. So we need to be able to improve on that. But otherwise, I think it's a good initiative. But I just feel like what we are seeing at university does not show that this really translates into interest in terms of students choosing maths and science, and also encouraging them. So I think in that light, I think there's still more that needs to be done. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Machesi. Honorable Mukhale.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think to a great extent I've been covered by some of the points that the colleagues have raised. Maybe mine is just to emphasize, particularly on the issue of encouraging science and maths at the foundation phase, at the primary level. I think more should be done in that regard, because I think that's where it starts, even before they get to the secondary level. If we don't address it at the primary level and encourage more of our learners to, love and to be, passionate about science and maths, it's going to be a problem. So maybe if they can explain more in terms of what they are doing to ensure that there is that kind of support to our primary schools in terms of ensuring that learners are kept, they're encouraged to pursue these subjects even further. And then in terms of their centers, I see on the map that they provided here, they only have 2 centers, if I'm not mistaken, in the Free State. Because I only see 2 dots here. And the Free State will always be one of the provinces that has been doing leading in terms of matric results. So maybe if they can also explain why they would have 2 centers located in the center of the Free State and not even spread out, like in other provinces. I can see they are like well spread out in terms of geographic spread. So those are my 2 questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mohale. Thank you very much, honorable members. DM will then hand over to you and the team. What just happened? DM will now hand over to you and the team to take us through the responses, but I see we also have a colleague from the Department of Education, Mayor Kembo, Elspeth Kembo. I don't know, Mayor, if you'd like to say anything before I hand over to the DM.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to the Minister and the colleagues. I would like just to confirm that the protocols that are there between the Department of in particular, Science and Innovation and DBE are very strong. We developed reviewed the math, science and technology strategy together and ensured that we included all the targets and mandates that we have given by the National Development Plan. As we all know, that the National Development Plan has given us very high targets of producing by 2030 450,000 matriculants who will have passed at 50% and above in mathematics and physical sciences. And those targets have been brought closer to reality by the medium-term strategic framework, which has requested and given us targets of 35,000 learners by 2024. And at the moment, we're doing very well. We're around 32,000 for both physical sciences and mathematics. So the collaboration that we have is based on all those mandates that we have within the National Development Plan targets and the medium-term strategic framework. And the work that is carried within the SAASTA through the NRF and the DSI is supported fully by the Department of Basic Education. And in terms of Eastern Cape and Northwest, the
the agreement that still needs to happen, we will facilitate that and ensure that it happens as soon as possible, so that the learners can benefit, because at the end it's the learners that need to benefit, and especially the ones in the schools that are no fee paying schools and underprivileged schools. Mr. Isaac Ramova is our colleague that we work together and integrate the work that we do with them in terms of implementation of the MST strategy, like I said, and the colleagues that are at SAASTA in terms of the work that happens. And one of the other programs that we run through the Math, Science and Technology Conditional Grant, which is actually in my office, we support the programs coming out of DSI and ensure that all the schools that have to participate in the Mathematics Olympiad, Science Olympiad, Expos and all that, that the money is used to support the schools that cannot afford to participate. And we ensure that through the 9 provincial coordinators within the MST grant, that they coordinate and ensure that the learners in all the 9 provinces participate and they are afforded the opportunity. And we do acknowledge that during COVID, that things went down a bit and participation went down, but we are working hard, and we just coming out of a meeting with the provincial coordinators to look at how we can ensure that we increase participation of all the learners that are that are in the, especially in the primary schools, to ensure that they grow up with it and you know, inside that passion for them to participate in math, science and activities. We acknowledge there are problems and shortages with regards to teachers that are competent in teaching mathematics, especially and the sciences. And hence we're working closely with other partners like the national the program that is implemented by the DSI using unemployed graduates. We also have another program that we use with Teach SA, which also supplies us with graduates that do 2 years service, and some of them they end up becoming teachers, and we deploy them in places where people do not want to go, which is your rural area, Eastern Cape, in Northern Cape, and all those areas, and they assist in that regard. But we need, and I'm happy that the Deputy Minister is in the meeting, that we need a comprehensive plan to look at how we can ensure that coming out of the Funza Lushaka program that is supported by the DBE for producing teachers, we get the quality of teachers that we need, especially for skills development, now that we are implementing the 3-stream model, and we need skills, especially for technical subjects. We do not have teachers. We have a serious shortage of teachers, not only in maths and science, and also, but also in technical subjects. So with those few, I have taken note of all the things that have been indicated, and we will attend to them with our colleagues at SAASTA and at DSI, Mr. Ramova and his team. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kembo. I would like to then hand over to DM Manamela and the team to then take us through the responses from the DSI.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think Imran would lead with the responses together with the team. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chair. And let me delegate downwards on the specifics, and then I'll ask Isaac to first respond to some of the questions addressed, and then Dr. Manzini can cover, and where there's additional inputs to make, then I will make that at the end. So Isaac, can you go and respond to the different questions.
Thank you, Chairperson and honorable members. There was a question related to the participation of our learners in international Olympiads and fairs. Yes, at this stage, our learners are already participating. The best national performers in the maths Olympiad do compete with their counterparts in the African continent in the Pan-African Mathematics Olympiad. And they also get afforded an opportunity to compete in the International Maths Olympiad. On the same note, the national best performers in the Expo for Young Scientists engage their international counterparts in the Intel ISEF Science Fair competition. And then the issue of expanding the participation from the current level of between 300 and 400,000 is something that honorable members we are working on, but at the same time we acknowledge the challenge that there is a relationship between the level of math and science subjects take up in the classroom, Olympiads and science fairs. But we are trying to up our game in terms of stimulating interest. And furthermore, the expansion would be pursued through introducing more STEM Olympiads and fairs targeting foundation phase learners, because at that level, anyone can participate irrespective of whether one is doing maths or science, which is the case once the learners are in grade 10 to 12. There was an issue about the distribution of science centers in the Free State. The ownership of science centers in the country, these are the science centers that we support, vary, ranging from government, NGOs, private sector organizations as part of their corporate social investment initiatives. And we have also started experiencing growth in those established by universities. Now, the two centers that are in the Free State are part of the University of Free State. One is at Boyden Observatory. So its location there is determined by an ideal location for an observatory to be functional to access into the skies. So it's a specialized center, and its location is determined by its special function. Then the other one is located on the campus, but then its location is informed by the intention to draw together various faculties to contribute to the content. But encouraging enough is that while they are located there, they get involved in outreach activities, taking science to under-resourced areas in different ways. We are in the process of trying to come up with a framework that would even incorporate how to strategically locate future science centers, as we have committed in the decadal plan. Now, we also acknowledge the fact that so far our focus has been biased in favor of secondary schools, neglecting a bit into, the lower levels. And that is something that we are working on at the moment. And our rejuvenated focus will start at early childhood development level. We have already made such a commitment through the ECD interdepartmental forum that has been established by DBE, to which we give regular reports in terms of how we're trying to shape our future involvement. And, the issue of the recruitment of the National Youth Service participants, I will request my colleague from SAASTA to handle that one, because it's a task performed by them. Now, there was a question around our partners. Okay, while we are working with DBE, the DBE has other partners which are not necessarily our partners. Our partners, as indicated in the presentation, where the institutional arrangement was outlined, are largely the science centers, the science councils, and universities. And then there are also several NGOs that are mainly involved in the organization of STEMI Olympiads and science fairs. Now, those partners do have their own partners who provide various forms of support. It could be providing them with additional funding or some other type of in-kind support. But our key partners are the ones that we have mentioned. There was a question about the impact. It's quite a tricky one, because there are so many role players in the space. So isolating the impact of the work that we're doing can sometimes be very, very difficult, because collectively we believe that that is how we are bringing change. Nonetheless, we intend, as part of the study that was mentioned in the main presentation, that we expect in 2024-25, to also focus on tracking the participants in our activities to establish exactly where they went post-matric. The particular focus would be on what did they enroll for in terms of our STEM area of interest. We already have some systems in place to do that, as we have been doing through the Human Sciences Research Council regarding the participants in the National Youth Service. We do track them to establish what happens to them when they leave the program, which ones immediately get employed, which ones continue with studies, and then which ones remain unemployed, and so on and so on. Thank you.
Thanks, Isaac. I think you've covered a couple. I'm just doing a reconciliation, but I want to check if the SAASTA colleague can come in on the National Youth Service, and then to see whether Dr. Manzini wants to add on anything. And then there's one or two remaining that I want to talk to. So, Dr. Musia on the National Youth Service.
Thank you, DTG. The question on the National Youth Service was whether we are using the system to recruit the participants. We advertise through the SAASTA website, mainly because most of the individuals that we're looking for are people in the STEMI space. However, we direct them to the program to do their application, and then we source the applications from the NYS system itself. I trust that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. And then Dr. Manzini, do you want to just make any comments?
Thank you very much, DDG. Colleagues have covered most of the more technical questions. Before I hand over to you, let me just remark that many of the comments from the honorable members of Parliament, really, the way I interpret them, they are meant to stretch us, you know, in recognition really of the vast need that we face in the country, you know, from the level of participation in science, mathematics and technology, the levels of success, you know, through graduations, etc. So we take to heart those inputs, and we will be, you know, making use of every opportunity to expand and extend the reach of our programs. We have a very good working relationship with the Department of Basic Education and the provincial departments and other counterparts. The chairperson, as well as the Honorable Machesi, they spoke specifically about the numbers of graduates that we see. I think we'll be aware that already at undergraduate level, we have more women graduating than men. However, the the issue is that in some areas, especially in engineering, women are still vastly outnumbered. So that's an area of concern. There may be one or two other areas where we still have a considerable gap, but in most areas in science, technology, engineering, and innovation, actually, women are beginning to outnumber men. With that, thank you very much. Let me hand over to you, DDG.
Thanks, Dr. Mancini. And in fact, your last one was the one or two comments I wanted to make. So, Honorable Chair, Member Mana Niso requested a location of the centers in writing. We will note that we presented it on a map, but for your oversight visits, you might need the kind of particular address in the district that it's in. That can easily be provided, and we will send it through. And we know that the continued emphasis on making sure that we provide statistics broken down by race, gender, disability, spatial, etc. It's a bit difficult with the science engagement process because some of the instruments we use to collect the data, it becomes very difficult to get that level of detail. But where we can get the kind of detail, say for example on Olympiads participation, etc., then we will start presenting those a lot more. We have been improving our data systems around these things. So where I will speak to the colleagues to see where we have some data that people might find useful that we can share because it will help us. And then the final comment is exactly what Dr. Manzini said, that we take the comments as a need to stretch. I know I've been talking to the team about the reading panel's latest report around the number of grade 4 kids that can read with meaning. So clearly the challenge is vast, and we need all kind of measures to be able to do it. And we have been over time, not just looking at running programs, but how is it that we can stretch the resources to get even more output and outcomes from those programs. So we would look at that. And in that score, there are clearly areas that I think we need to focus more attention on. The one that I think as part of our broader responsibilities under Dr. Manzini around human capital development, we've started work with the with the NRF to really dig into the numbers a lot more in relation to the kind of areas that have been identified in the decadal plan. So the idea is to be a lot more targeted, and then to see whether we can design partnerships with other parties to deal with specific problems. So clearly, the one that has been brought to our attention is in the engineering space, particularly some of these high-tech, exciting areas like rocketry, etc. So, you know, these are programs that we also have to work with our colleagues in DSI who are responsible for particular areas like advanced manufacturing or space, etc. So we take that comment, we need to look at it, but I think Dr. Manzini is right that there has been shifts that has been happening over the past decade that I think we need to familiarize ourselves a lot more, so that as we plan ahead, we then take into account exactly where these challenges remain. In certain areas, the kind of demographic profile is very representative now, particularly where there's new areas like nanotechnology, etc. And we've been seeing these patterns. I think it's in certain areas, IT is a particular problem. The work that was done for us by CRES has shown this, and we need to then find ways of identifying like particular target areas. So that's the one comment, but I think we're taking that into account and see how we can, on an incremental and ongoing basis, be able to find areas that are amenable to change and then to change that. And then I think the last comment that I wanted to raise, because I think even the Eastern Cape Northwest was covered by our colleague from the Department of Basic Education, is I couldn't agree more with the comment that we need to really up the game around career guidance, particularly in this context of a very changing world. People are not familiar with where there are opportunities. So I know the Deputy Minister, who may also want to comment on this, has been working together with the DHET colleagues and the DSI colleagues in partnership to look at how we can really enhance career guidance services, and also to use innovations in the way that we communicate career guidance information to people. So hopefully some of that will also start taking root as we move forward, so that we provide young people with fairly good information for them to be able to take advantage of new opportunities, but also not to be misplaced. I mean, I think there are many people who have strengths in particular ways, but because of the lack of career guidance, they streamed into particular areas, then they find out actually, I could have made a much better contribution had I known that, there was something like data science as an example, but now I've ended up in a biological science degree as an example. So this is not only us in South Africa, this is I think a global challenge, particularly in the case where the kind of workplaces are changing that much. And that's the reason why we identified this grand challenge, looking at the future of skills, education and work, and to look at how we strengthen that system in a way so that we have a lot more people who early on in their careers are able to identify the areas that they get excited about, but they also add value, and that they find long-term sustainability opportunities in terms of income and jobs. So let me leave it at that, but I'm not too sure now if we go back finally up to the Deputy Minister, who may want to make any final comments before we hand it over back to you, Chair. Thanks.
DM, any last remarks from your side? Okay, the DM might be having network challenges.
No, Chair, I've been battling to press my mic. I'm okay. I'm covered, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, DM.
I'm good, thank you.
All right, thank you very much to the Deputy Minister Manamela, the DDG Patel. Sorry about that. The DDG Patel, and to our colleagues from the department who accompanied the DM, as well as Ms. Campbell from the Department of Basic Education. I don't know if members would like to, we're fewer in the meeting, and the presentation was very succinct. I don't know if there are any members who would like to have one last bite before I close the meeting. Mamsibia, Honorable Machesi, Honorable Mukhale, Honorable Mananiso, Honorable Boshoff, are we all fine?
We're fine, Chair.
Okay.
I'm fine, Chair. We're fine, thanks, Chair.
Fine, thank you. I missed so much due to connectivity that I think if I ask anything, it might have been said.
Okay. All right. Definitely, load shedding is really a challenge for all of us to do our work. So I understand, Honorable Boshoff, that the network might not be as strong as it usually is. I'd like to thank the department for its presentation. I think key from the conversation we've had today is that this type of work is very important, particularly because as a committee, we appreciate the role that science and innovation should be playing in addressing many of the social ills and developmental agendas of the country. And we appreciate that there is what we call this high education, science, technology, and innovation landscape, where what we must learn and what we want to achieve through the national system of innovation are truly intertwined. And so we appreciate the fact that more work needs to be done, greater collaboration needs to take place. And so we want to encourage and implore the Department of Science and Innovation to continue to strengthen its work through SAASTA. We implore the Department of Basic Education to also play its role and to welcome, interventions from DSI and see their follow through, and ensure that there are no gaps in the work that we are all trying to do. So there mustn't be, there shouldn't be gaps in the work that we're doing as educators who are teaching, and the work that we're doing as DSI in supporting, science, technology, science, STEM subjects, or science and maths in basic education through our centers. Of course, there's concern on the reach. So where are they? Are they having great enough impact in our communities? Are they accessible? And how do we ensure equity in terms of their distribution? There's also concern around the lifeline of the impact. So, the success plan or succession plan, as I call it, and being able to monitor that initial investment that we are making and follow it through till the end. And colleagues have brought us into confidence in that regard. But of course, there may be loopholes, that are evident in terms of the numbers that are sometimes lacking as we go higher in the system. So I want to really appreciate you, colleagues. I think members from across parties will also reach out to you where they feel that it will be important for their constituencies that they service to also, receive some of these science engagement projects, which I think for me, DM, what you did with the kids is exactly how I would love for us to make young people understand science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I think often it feels so far-fetched, but I think if we are able to make it practical in the classroom, make it practical within communities. Every time I interact with the work being done by the Department of Science and Innovation, I always think to myself, how do I, as Nompendulo, contribute to ensuring that there are young people in my constituency, in the country, who know that there's all these amazing initiatives and innovations and work that can be done, but also the translation of what they're studying. So a child who's studying biology, a child who's studying maths, a child who's studying physics, how do we make them understand, and this is where the part of the career development comes in, how do we make them understand what the subject they are studying can translate to in its most meaningful sense? So if I study this, I will have the skill to contribute to this, and therefore I can do this. And what does that look like? Because I think often there's a massive disjuncture between that. You need to touch and feel, the contribution that the discipline you are studying can make to a particular innovation or study or whatever it is. So I think the career development element remains really quintessential, because that's where you find a huge number of our students who do, some of these science subjects going into teaching. So they'll go and do a PGCE because they've not been able to be ushered into the various opportunities that are there. Yet we will say we have a shortage of X, Y, and Z skills, but they are there. There's a disjuncture between industry or even us as government and them knowing what they can do. So us fetching them and saying, "Here, this is what you can do," and them knowing what they can do. There's a massive disjuncture there. So thank you very much, colleagues, for your time. And want to, of course, encourage you to continue doing the work that you do at greater scales, more impactful, more coordinated, so that we can achieve what we want to achieve through our country's national system of innovation. That brings us to the end of our meeting. I don't think we will take what is it called, minutes in Wednesday's meeting, honorable members, when most of us are on the platform. That then brings us to the end of our meeting. Thank you so much, and I wish you a restful weekend. Siyabonga.
Recording stopped.